What's up guys? My name is Kevin. You're watching Track Car Obsession. Today we're going to be installing a new steering wheel and quick disconnect on our RX-8. Stay tuned. Alright, so as you can see, we've actually got the steering wheel and the entire steering column outside of the car right now. We took it out to not only do the wiring, but to go ahead and strip the interior and get it ready for the cage. So I thought it would be easier to go ahead and show you how to remove the steering wheel and whatever you need to behind it while the steering wheel and steering shaft are actually outside of the car. So the first thing that you're going to do when you have it in your car is take the airbag off. Now I showed in the first interior removal video on how to take the airbag off, and I'll link that up in the up top of the screen there, as well as in the description. But basically, underneath the airbag and steering wheel, you've got a couple of caps here, and you pop off those plastic caps, take out 2 bolts, and the airbag will come out, and then you just disconnect the wires going to that. Now, when you do this, make sure that you have the battery disconnected and that the battery is fully drained. So, you know, try and turn on you know, a radio or hit the brakes a few times so that the lights come on to completely drain any type of electricity out of the system, so you don't accidentally have the airbag going off. So once you have that out, you're going to disconnect the horn, and I believe the horn system is actually built into this, so when you push it in, it grounds out on here. So the wires going into the horn will be in your airbag, clock spring, and everything. And then of course on this wheel you've got multimedia buttons. So first thing that you're going to do once you get all that stuff off is break this nut loose, and then once you have it broken loose, we'll go ahead and get the steering wheel pulled off. So let's go ahead and get this thing loose right now. All right, so on an RX-8, this nut is a 21, and I've already broken it loose. If you have it in the car, it's really easy to break loose. I actually broke this loose with the entire steering shaft and everything out of the car. You know, so it's not that big of a deal, and it's really not on as tight as you would think it is. All right, and once you have the nut off, you'll see people use steering wheel pullers, and you can use that if you want. It's not really necessary. You know, all you got to do is grab the wheel really good and pull on it and wiggle at the same time, and you should be able to break it loose. Like I said, I've already actually taken this off, and I did that without it connected to the car at all, and without any type of steering wheel puller. So it's really not that difficult. So if you don't have a puller of any type, don't worry about going and renting one or buying one, because you're just wasting your time and money. All right, so that's it. And all your airbag wires and everything go right through there. And then you've got your clock spring. Make sure that you don't, I mean, if you plan on putting this stuff back in your car, make sure that you don't over rotate the clock spring. Just keep it straight when you pull it off, because you can damage the clock spring. And if you're ever going to use your stock steering wheel again and putting it back on, you don't want to have to go buy another one of these. So make sure you take that off straight. So in order to pull this off, all we're going to do is take off 3 Phillips head screws. All right, so once you have the wheel removed and the clock spring removed, on RX-8 models, now this only applies to RX-8s obviously, but on RX-8 models, if you have DSC, which is the dynamic stability control, you're going to have what's called a steering angle sensor. And a lot of people think that this is built into the steering rack. It's actually not in an RX-8. But what you have is this sensor here, and when you turn the steering wheel, you know, these different notches send a signal through to the stability control system, and then it can calculate where you have the wheel. It also uses other sensors, yaw sensors and stuff in the car to help with stability. But in my car, I'm deleting the DSC, the dynamic stability control, so I'm not going to need this. So I'm going to be taking this out. But when you get an adapter, and I'll go ahead and show you the adapter that I got for our aftermarket wheel. It has these two holes here, and then it's got a hole for your horn wiring and everything. But these two holes, when you slide it over, are designed to slide over these two plastic pins or knobs, so that you can continue using your factory DSC system. So I'm going to go ahead and take all of this off though. And in order to do that, there's just a couple clips, and then this pops up, and then this will slide off. All right, so we've got that loose, and I'll pull this off in order to get that off. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to do for my particular project is go ahead and remove this entire assembly. I have deleted the windshield wipers from the car, so I do not need anything on this side. And then this side is just going to be your turn signals, and then your headlights with high beams and low beams. So for turn signals, I'm just going to place a couple buttons on the steering wheel, and we'll do that in the future with a quick disconnect wire. So when we pop the steering wheel off, the buttons will stay with the steering wheel, and then have a headlight on and off on the dash, and then that way I can get rid of all this stuff. So in order to do that, we just need to remove a few screws here. All right, so there's the steering angle sensor. And then the whole assembly with your two multi-switches, or multi-purpose switches, which again, I'm not going to use. We may use the guts out of this. I'm not sure. But I don't want all this stuff in the way when I'm trying to drive the car as fast as I can. So get that out of the way. What I've done is I've gone with this, which you would normally use, and I can't remember the brand. It was a cheaper one that I found on Amazon, but I'll put it in the link. I'll put the link in the description. But it was pretty inexpensive. But normally what you would use one of these for is if you weren't going to use any type of quick disconnect, you would just throw this on and then throw a steering wheel on, and you'd have about factory steering position. But we're going to use this with a quick disconnect, and that's actually going to bring the steering wheel a little bit closer to me. So like I said, it's got two holes here, so if you've got the DSC system and you're keeping that steering angle sensor, they'll actually go right in here, but it's splined exactly like your factory steering wheel is splined. So you just throw that on, and then we'll bolt on our quick disconnect to here. Now with this, we're just going to use the factory nut that came off the steering wheel. Now once I have this back in the car, I'll go ahead and torque it to spec properly once it's connected to the steering rack. But like I said, it'd be easier for me to go ahead and show you how to install this stuff while it's outside of the car. So now that we have this on, let me go ahead and show you some of the other parts. So now that we have this on, let me go ahead and show you the quick disconnect and then the steering wheel. It's NRG, I think it's the series 2.8, black with the neochrome quick disconnect part. But we'll go ahead and pull this apart, set that part aside. And it does come with provisions for a horn. There are wires in here, but we're going to go ahead and take these out so they're not in the way. And it comes with these pieces here, which there aren't any instructions in the box, but basically these are for grounding out your horn. All right, so what I talk about way too long here is how you use these tabs. Basically, they come with the NRG kit, and if you have an aftermarket horn on your steering wheel that does not have its own grounding cable, you're going to use these tabs on the painted surface of the quick disconnect, since it won't carry a ground through. That'll meet up against your aftermarket steering wheel for the ground, and then you run the wire from the quick disconnect up onto the tab that's on this little steel plate, and that'll allow you to get a ground for your aftermarket horn. So we'll set this all aside because we don't need that, and we'll get the quick disconnect mounted here. Well, first let me go ahead and remove these wires for the horn. So now that we got the wires removed for the horn, we're going to go ahead and install the back side of the quick disconnect. All right, so those are nice and snug. Now, if you're paranoid about any of these screws coming out while you're driving, you can throw blue Loctite on there if you want, but it's not really necessary. Just give all 6 bolts a nice snug, and you should be good. So I'm going to take these gloves off so that we can go ahead and mount this steering wheel, because I don't want to get any of this grease on our really nice wheel. So let me go ahead and take these off, and then we'll get that mounted with the quick disconnect. Okay. Now that we've got the base of the disconnect, the quick disconnect on, we'll go ahead and throw the steering wheel onto this piece, and then we'll be able to clip it on. But what you want to do is make sure you have your wheels aligned, obviously, when you have this in your car, and then you'll see an NRG logo on here, and that should be at the top. Now, like I said, since this is out of the car, it may or may not be straight, but I wanted to go ahead and show you the install on here while it's out of the car. It's easier to show the disassembly of all this stuff, but I may have to adjust it a little bit once I get it in the car. So we've got that attached. So let's go ahead. Let me show you the steering wheel that we have. It is an OMP Super Turismo or Superquadro, something like that. It's got the flat bottom, so it's easier if you have long legs or anything to move around in the car once you have this installed. Obviously, with the quick disconnect, we'll be able to set it up on the dash or take it out of the car with us, but it is a nice suede or Alcantara, and then it's got your centering line at the top, but it's extremely nice. Let's go ahead and throw this onto the quick disconnect, and then we'll be able to pop it right onto the steering column here. Let's get this, and again, what we want to do is line it up so that the NRG is at the top, and make sure that this is there we go. All right, so I just wanted to line that up because it looks like this sleeve had been rotated a little bit. So then we will line up the steering wheel with the holes here where it has NRG at the top of the quick disconnect. And there it is. Ready to go on the car. So then this will actually just sit on here. And like I said, when you have it in the car, it'll be easy, but you just line up those logos, the NRG logos here, and it pops right on. And then now we have our racing wheel. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I know it was a little long-winded, and I hope it wasn't too boring. I just wanted to go into some details because the NRG quick disconnect kit doesn't come with any instructions, so I wanted to mention like the grounding plates and then how to line everything up. And then the other stuff was just to explain what we're doing with the race car in terms of basically removing most of the electronics. So like the windshield wipers and the airbags and all that stuff and the horn. So I don't need any of those electronics. They'll just get in the way. So went ahead and removed those as well. And then of course any RX-8 owner that has the DSC system and is trying to figure out where their steering angle sensor is. There's a lot of misinformation online about where that's located. So as you can see, it's right behind the airbag clock spring behind the steering wheel. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. The next thing that we need to do is go ahead and throw this into the car, and then we're going to do a little bit of body work before dropping the car back down on its wheels and getting it to where we're going to take it to go ahead and put the engine and transmission in within the next week or two. So I'm really excited to show you guys that. But if this is a project that you want to continue watching, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Take care.